When the Great War between countless races started, demons from faraway worlds rushed down to Earth and caused terrible destruction. As the blue planet turned into a slaughterhouse for endless races, humanity's few gifted individuals were still too weak to survive. So, in the crumbling ruins, the first brave warriors stepped forward with determined eyes to face danger beyond measure. Humanity clung to survival, using only their weapons and a handful of awakened heroes to fight back against the relentless attack of the demon ring. But after over 10 years, both our shields fell, leaving us to fight with our last breath. Endless wave of pitch-black demons, as thick as a locust plague, poured in and spread fear and hopelessness everywhere. More than 1 million people died in the Eastern Human Alliance, leaving rows of white headstones that stand as a quiet reminder of how much the war cost. As weapons ran low and more people awakened, nations poured every last resource into training those with powers to strengthen the front lines. To save their home and stay alive, humans had to throw everything they had into an endless war, and in the snowy northern city of the Eastern Alliance, a thick stone wall stood strong against the cold. Chen Guhai, a 19-year-old with level 2 electro-disintegration powers, stumbled back from the 10th defense line after a brutal fight with a rotting giant that left him holding only half a hand. Sui, the 22-year-old with level 3 fire ability, blew herself up along with a huge pile of explosives at the 9th defense line to blow up the bridge, and her body disappeared into a roaring sea of flames. Facing rows of empty frames where fallen friends should be, the mayor spoke with a broken heart, tears in his eyes as he read the list of heroes lost to war. Tears streamed down his cheeks as Mayor Yachong cried out that they were the heroes of Yachong and the Hua Nation. The crowd bowed their heads in silence, their eyes full of pain as his words echoed, reminding them that just a few months ago, the 9th defense line had fallen. Mayor Yacheng's stern warning hung heavy in the air. If the myriad races break our lines again, Yakan will pay the price, for we have no retreat left and the Eastern Alliance is now mustering 1 million superpowered heroes to strike back. Looking down, the mayor stood tall and his question struck everyone in the crowd like lightning, asking what we, the young people of Yachong, must do. With tears running down their faces, the young men gripped their fists and shouted in anger and sorrow, crying out to protect their home and land until their voices merged into one endless roar. The crowd exploded into action as thousands of young people rushed forward, their shouts echoing endlessly across the square with a determination that surged like a rising tide. Their eyes burned with pure hate as they roared, demanding to march to the front and kill the enemy. Young faces twisted in anger screamed hateful words, demanding that they kill those alien races and tear them apart. Suddenly, a cloud of hands shot up into the air, and registration forms fluttered down like birds signaling a battle. I stepped forward to join the ranks as the heavy thud of each stamp marked a life's path, calling out names like Chunyu and Shur until they were all claimed and sent on their way. At the recruitment desk, a stern officer read the list until he reached Nanxing's name. The young man named Nanxing stepped forward while the officer read his details aloud. He was 20, an architecture student at Yakan Industrial University with no awakened powers yet. When the officer asked if he wanted to enlist and fight on the front lines, a classmate turned in shock to ask, "You're going to kill the enemy?" Nanxing simply turned his face away, his eyes hard as he replied coldly, "Yes," leaving his stunned friend staring in disbelief. Nanxing stared straight ahead with a steady voice, while I chose to stay in the back to handle the supplies. The crowd behind him whispered their doubts, calling his refusal to fight on the front lines a cowardly shame for a schoolmate who should be out there. The recruitment officer shouted at Nanxing with frustration, reminding him that while Nanxing was healthy and talented, the nation needed brave soldiers on the front lines to protect them from the enemy, and choosing to run away felt like betraying the shame of being conquered by other races. Nanxing turned his face away, his eyes steady and full of purpose, and I have never forgotten that he has made his choice. His old classmate angrily grabbed Nanxing's collar, calling him a coward for turning his back when the nation's future was hanging in the balance. Even while everyone was furious, the recruitment officer had to speak up to calm things down and stop the fight from getting worse. The stern officer turned to Nanxing and reminded him that joining was a choice and a personal duty, not something forced upon him. He handed Nanxing the form so he could leave, but he couldn't hide the regret in his voice that such a talented person was being wasted. While the crowd looked at him with scorn and disappointment, Nanxing quietly slipped into his new form, turned his back on them, and walked away. Shouts and curses echoed like daggers stabbing his back, blaming him for the world's suffering and warning of tragedy if the front lines fell, as Nanxing walked away alone through the dust and cold indifference. The next day, a thick blanket of white snow covered the city's gray sky as roaring military helicopters tore through the silence. An endless line of military vehicles pushed forward through the snowstorm, while old songs echoed in the wind, celebrating the bond between soldiers even as danger closed in. While soldiers and civilians cheered for their homeland, A hooded figure watched from afar as his phone suddenly buzzed. He stared at his phone's bright screen, which flashed a story of the Eastern Alliance's huge win against all enemies. But right below it, a bold headline caught his eye. The genius Yi Chong had refused to join the army. The news that the talented Yaya Chonging was refusing to join the army spread fast and became a hot topic everywhere. Malicious insults rained down on him, calling him a coward and a burden. Yet Nanxing kept his face stone cold while his eyes burned with a deep, unspoken truth. Nanxing's eyes shone with a mix of fierce determination and deep sadness as he whispered to himself, "Yes, they are all heroes, but this battle is just mods flying into a flame." As he watched tiny soldiers get crushed by giant monsters with glowing red eyes, he realized his old army had made a fatal mistake, triggering memories of his past life, where he too had rushed into battle to face the same terrifying foes. Then he stood up, facing a war map bathed in light as if it held a future promise. And soon I too joined the command to become a brilliant strategist. As humans were pushed back one step at a time, he gave his whole life to studying 5 special powers and then planted them inside himself until they grew into brilliant, glowing trees of talent. As long as these 5 talents worked together, they could win the war. But before I could finish my plan, humanity fell and the strongest beast of all killed me, leaving me to see only giant monsters with glowing red eyes as I knelt. Just as his blood poured from his mouth in pure despair, he roared that it was unacceptable and cursed that he wished he had grown stronger sooner. The cold, empty battlefield was buried in falling snow where a tiny figure fell down among the broken ruins, wishing endlessly that he had been strong enough to save everyone. Suddenly, a miracle occurred as the Nanxing sat on a snowy bench to stare at his footprints. And maybe because of obsession or destiny, I was reborn. Not only did he keep his custom-grown talent trees whole, but they also rose from the ground in blue streams of light, revealing 5 legendary powers of beast taming, elemental forces, Ashura strength, array magic, and undying life. Each so mighty that boosting them would demand a huge stash of source stones and plenty of time. He carried an unbreakable faith that if he could master his 5 talents and plan from afar, he could stand alone against any threat and keep humanity safe, no matter how many fortresses fell. He turned away from the talent trees, whispering to himself that now, even heading to the battlefield wouldn't let him defeat many aliens or gather enough source stones to upgrade his skills, so rushing forward would only waste everything he had worked for. His eyes were set on a goal, a hand reaching out to grab fate itself, for that was the quickest way to gather enough source stones from the dangerous testing grounds where mutated beasts roam to fuel his talent upgrades. Covered in white snow, Nanxing raced through the dark like an arrow, his eyes burning with focus, needing to quickly grab source stones to upgrade his skills at the testing grounds behind the Chongqing City branch. Who would have guessed that the once bustling training camp for superpowered heroes from the Great War would now stand empty and forgotten, with all the talented kids gone and no new faces coming to learn. Even though the cold was so sharp it felt like it could cut you, old workers kept moving frozen monster bodies to feed the army, while a young man warned Aunt Wong to be careful because helping the country was the only way they could do anything right now in this crazy mess. Aunt Wong sighed as the worry of delayed supplies for the front lines weighed heavily on them, their age making the heavy alloy swords too much to handle and forcing them to fight the ferocious beasts slowly, one by one. The girl on crutches stood quiet, watching her co-workers with sad eyes while a silent wish for helplessness escaped her lips. Just then, a figure emerged from the quiet. Nanxing stepped up to greet them and said, "I'm here to train at the testing grounds." He flashed a confident smile and swept his sharp eyes over the crowd, noting your shortage before offering to help you handle the mutant bee. HLY grabbed the sword, his red eyes bright with resolve, nodded to the warning, and marched down the hill toward the testing ground, leaving the hopeful stares of his friends behind, including the red-haired girl who was secretly happy about the faster work. As the young man walked away, the red-haired girl couldn't help but blush, secretly thinking that even though he was quiet, he was strangely handsome. But right away, Aunt Wong yanked her back to the cold truth. It was Nanxing, the coward who had slipped away from the front lines. Aunt Wong kept making fun of him, doubting that a coward like him could ever fight monsters and predicting he would quit and start complaining very soon. Meanwhile, Nanxing pushed deep into the shadowy testing zone where red light streaks slashed through the air, and a system pop-up warned that he'd chosen the dangerous grade to challenge. But since no records existed, the system asked if he really wanted to start. Nanxing didn't hesitate. He stood firm and spoke loudly in the quiet room, shouting back, "I confirm! Let the challenge begin." Suddenly, a burst of red energy filled the room. A new challenge appeared, and a mysterious system error was followed by a prophetic voice warning that as the crimson night rose, the long night was coming and humanity had no choice but to fight. And then, from the thick red fog, terrible shapes started to appear, and as their evil voices echoed, a chilling question hung in the air. Would you be brave enough to become a shadow in the night to save our future? Nanxing stood alone as monsters closed in, but with a fierce, unbreakable fire in his eyes. He was ready to face whatever curses came his way. In that split second, he spoke with absolute certainty, his voice booming, "I am willing," as the sword in his hand began to glow, ready for a fight where life depended on the outcome. Without a second's thought, Nanxing lunged straight into the swarm of monsters, his sword slicing wildly through the air, while a sudden idea sparked in his mind. Let's try using that beast-taming power right now. After the invasion by countless races, creatures mutated into monsters by the overflowing spiritual energy and attacked Nanxing fiercely, while she ran away to escape their deadly strikes. He remembered his past life on the front lines where many different races and mutated beasts like the umbrella bird, which could mimic movements it had seen, were dangerous threats. While deadly monsters roared all around, Nanxing moved as fast as the wind to strike the umbrella bird's weak spot. Without even a second's thought, he swung his sword straight down to slice right through the monster's head and end it instantly. As the umbrella bird crashed down, a glowing elemental stone surfaced, and Nanxing snatched it up, ready to unlock something brand new. He realized the talent upgrade system worked exactly like it did in his past life. Defeating an umbrella bird gave him an elemental stone, and every time his talent leveled up, he could tame another mutated beast. Even though he was hurt, Nanxing stood his ground with a determined look in his eyes, knowing he could take the pain, charging back into the fight to dodge every deadly blow and feeling sure he could wipe out the whole horde of monsters. As a monster lunged with sharp fangs, Nanxing was faster, gliding past like a ghost to swing his sword and slice through another charging beast with decisive, powerful strikes. Nanxing spun and kicked the monster that was circling him, sending it flying away in a flash. His boots hit the ground with a solid thud that sent a ripple through the air, leaving him ready to strike again. With another kick, he knocked down another monster, moving without stopping as the whole battlefield turned into his deadly dance. He cut a path through the mob of monsters, looking up to take out the flying ones first, swinging his sword to slash them from the sky. He gasped for air, his face grimy with dirt and blood, yet his eyes still burned with hope as he stared at the glowing notification. And as I had guessed, the system had finally become more powerful. Blood covered his face as Nanxing's eyes burned red in the smoke, and though every breath was hard, his strength never broke. Right in front of him, a horde of blackbird monsters let out loud screams while their giant boss spread its wings, making a wild and dangerous show. He had to face the umbrella bird emperor, the mighty leader of the monster horde. A powerful counterattack sent him flying, blood splattered everywhere, and Nanxing muttered that defeating it would be very hard in his current state. Yet he glided like a ghost to evade the deadly pounce, his eyes flashing with determination as he spun around growling that he must attack its weak point. The sword flashed, ripping through the air and diving straight into the giant hole on the monster's huge belly. He narrowed his eyes, clearly feeling that this armor felt tougher than anything he'd ever known before. He didn't pause before driving forward with every sword hit mixing wild anger and sharp focus, and as the monster roared in agony, its huge body fell flat and split the ground with a deep crack. Nanxing roared again, his eyes turning red as blood, and charged forward to kill the dying monster. Meanwhile, elsewhere, two middle-aged women with frowning faces chatted as lunch break began. Xiaolu approached and asked Aunt Wang and Sister Li why they weren't heading to the cafeteria to eat, but Aunt Wang growled that she wanted to see how long he could keep up his act before he finally sneaked away, her worry mounting as she reminded them that their city had been pushed back so hard it felt just like a war zone where they couldn't afford to let anyone cause trouble or run away. A voice rang out across the room, declaring that Nanxing had finished the first floor of the top-tier challenge. Aunt Wang looked at Xiaolu and Sister Li with a doubtful frown, whispering that the man must have quit because he couldn't stand the pressure. Suddenly, a giant figure rushed straight at them, and Aunt Wang froze with her eyes wide with fear. Aunt Wang's eyes went wide with fear as cold sweat poured down her face. A horrified scream rang out as Aunt Wang collapsed, leaving Sister Li and Xiaolu frozen in shock before the sudden figure. Nanxing stood there, his clothes torn and covered in blood. Yet his eyes stayed strong as the system announced he had killed 2,000 people and set a new record for the first floor of the trial tower. Aunt Wang and Xiaolu stared in shock, stammering to ask if he had really passed that hard test while looking so terrible. Nanxing lifted his head, his eyes burning red like fresh blood, and gave a cold, short answer. Yes, I passed. Then he turned away, telling the others to clean up the monster bodies while his voice stayed empty of any feeling. Sister Li stared in shock at Nanxing's retreating back, with a feeling she couldn't name rising in her heart. She gazed downward, terrified to see thousands of monster bodies stacked high like mountains, and she realized that Nanxing had wiped them all out by himself. Sitting in the warm water, Nanxing grumbled as he realized he needed twice as much practice to grow stronger. So he checked his talent tree and found that even though his mutated beast aiming score hit 2000, it still wasn't enough to unlock the next level with just his first floor's worth of experience. Just then, a voice crackled over the loudspeaker, telling everyone what was happening with the war. The loudspeaker kept shouting that the next attack was coming and 2 superpowered heroes had already reached the front lines. Nanxian shut his eyes as his past rushed back, knowing his 2 allies were about to fail and let the front line crumble, causing the 8th defense to collapse before time ran out. Without pausing for a breath, the black-haired boy shut off the water, his mind locked on one goal: racing against death by charging straight up to the 2nd floor of the challenge tower. Meanwhile, in another corner, the cleaners were still stunned by Nanxiang's achievement, with one muttering that he couldn't believe the kid passed the challenge while another nodded with complex eyes, agreeing that despite such injuries he'd need a long rest but giving it his all on a great challenge that few could pass. Aunt Wang, her face tight with worry, shook her head to say that chasing too much at once is foolish, and you must just take it one step at a time. I can't wait to see if his terrible injuries mean a long rest or if he'll just vanish to hide them forever. Suddenly, a cry of surprise cut through the gossip as Nanxiang, looking determined, made her way back. Cough, cough. He's back. And someone whispered to hush while another sneered. So what if he's back? Aunt Wang immediately rushed over, asking, Aren't you done with the 1st floor? The black-haired young man answered in a cold, steady voice. I'm going up to the 2nd floor to keep the challenge going, leaving Aunt Wang's mouth hanging open in shock. She roared in a mix of anger and worry, asking, With injuries this bad, why do you still want to climb to the 2nd floor? What are you trying to prove? Sister Li stepped in with a worried voice, telling Nanxiang that the 2nd floor is overrun by huge, twisted monsters and urging her to wait until she recovers, while Xiaolu added that those Oxtiger beasts are as tough as tanks and nearly impossible to fight. The dark-haired youth just turned his back and walked away with a firm step, leaving behind a chilly comment. Thanks, but I'll do it myself. Aunt Wang yelled in anger, her words sharp and mocking as she asked why someone who claimed to be so capable wouldn't just go fight on the front lines. Showing off here is pointless, another voice called out, while Sister Li watched Nanxiang's retreating back with a thoughtful gaze, wondering at the strange nature of someone like him. He didn't look like someone who would fear death or hide in the back. Instead, the words lingered in the air as Nanxiang, his eye injured, marched forward with steady resolve. A red alert flashed across the room as you triggered the Gradia Challenge 2nd floor system error, while Nanxiang stood surrounded by a swarm of huge ox-tiger monsters with fire in his eyes, ready for a battle where there was no running away. Surrounded by a red wave of power, Nanzi felt the scary pressure of the 2nd floor of the challenge tower, which was totally different from the first. Among the huge monsters, he clumsily dodged their fierce attacks while his bright red sword energy sliced through the air. The young man's red eyes showed the monster's face, and you could see his burning will in every line. But then, a monster lunged forward, hitting him so fast he couldn't even dodge. His body flew backward and hit the ground with a spark flying off the floor. He twisted and turned on the freezing floor, his injuries burning, yet his spirit stayed strong. Looking up, he whispered to himself that he was too small and weak to survive a direct hit, especially with his injuries, while the giant monsters with bloodshot eyes sneered down at him from their towering height. Nanxiang pushed himself up, his eyes hard and cold as he locked onto the monsters. You dare mock me while I stand strong, but I never charge in blind. He growled as his gaze shifted to a burning red and a wave of deadly intent surged through him. Suddenly, a huge monster was lifted straight up into the sky like it was being held by a giant, unseen hand. With a swift flick of his sword, Nanxiang flew past the stunned monsters. He fell forward, his burning sword slashing straight into the head of the monster hanging above him. With a mighty and sharp slash, he drew his sword, sending a spray of blood from the wound. The beast gave one last scream before turning into red dust and leaving a dangerous emptiness behind. As one terrifying threat faded, another horde of massive monsters burst from the shadows with burning red eyes and angry growls. But Nanxiang stayed calm, realizing he could tame these level 2 beasts first before finishing them off. A flash of red energy burst from his hand, proof of his rare gift to tame monsters. The taming aura burst open like a wild storm, swallowing the whole horde of monsters in a blinding flash of red light. The monsters let out a desperate, loud roar as their bodies shook with every effort to break free from the strange force holding them. Nanxiang stood steady in the middle of the swirling energy, watching as sharp pillars burst from the ground to pin the monsters in place. With the giant monster now lying flat and quiet, he gave a small, secret smile. That's what obedience looks like, he thought, swinging his glowing red sword once more to keep gaining power and reach level 3 all at once. The scene shifted to a busy butchery where workers were carving giant monster meat while an old man shouted for help and Nanxiang rested quietly, But soon a blue light appeared as he checked his new level 6 talent that lets him tame 2,000 monsters, making him realize that after eliminating over 10,000 in just 3 days, it was time to head into the wild tonight. The wilds were a deadly trap that even the strongest heroes found hard to leave, hiding giant monsters in the dark who usually stayed away from the city thanks to our superpowered defenders and heavy guns. Standing atop a high peak, he watched the distant mountains where a monster kingdom hid, knowing that taming them was the secret to his plan against the many races. Back in the real world, an old man with silver hair asked Nancy, "Brother Nan, do we need to do another shift to transport supplies to the front lines today?" The old man added, "We can work overtime any time to send reinforcements to the front lines." Nancy told the old man to take a good rest. Outside the bustling city, a mighty wall stood tall against the sky, while below it, silent snow-covered roads stretched out with only a handful of small trucks crossing them. A man peered over the side of a truck, shouting for the packed city streets to clear as ambulances rushed past with the wounded, while Nancy stood in the crowd with a worried look, knowing the front line was in terrible trouble. Right then, some folks in the crowd craned their necks to the sky, shouting and pointing as streaks of light zoomed overhead. Missiles ripped through the dark sky at a terrifying speed, fooling everyone into thinking their side was finally winning. But Nancy Ing, seeing with his sharp eyes and drawing on lessons from his past life, knew this wasn't a victory sign but a cry for help that meant their defense was about to crumble. He didn't waste a second. He slipped on his half-face mask, tightened his grip on his alloy sword, pulled on his battle cloak, and marched straight through the snow with Nanxiang, ready for the fight. A military truck stopped in the snow while anxious shouts echoed through the cold night, and an angry driver stepped out to curse his broken-down vehicle as a blonde woman urged him to flee the dangers lurking nearby so they could pack up and leave. The driver's eyes went wide with shock as a scary, shadowy shape slowly emerged from the distance. Suddenly, someone flashed by, running fast through the snow and leaving the truck far behind. The two girls in the car stared in shock, wondering who would be crazy enough to leave the city this late. The black-haired young man with a half-face mask turned his head to warn that a gigantic, deadly mutated wolf was right ahead. The dark-haired girl begged her older sister that the hospital desperately needed medicine, while the blonde woman kept worrying about whether they could stay safe. The black-haired girl said this place is a den for mutated wolves, and with no weapons, the medicine team has seen too much madness in the last 10 years. Finally, the blonde woman threw off her doubts, clutched the steering wheel tight, and drove on. A loud noise made them jump, and they both stared in fear at what was outside. The driver from earlier was attacked by a monster, his faint cries for help echoing through the snow in the rearview mirror, and the blonde girl horrifiedly realized the predator was charging right at them. The black-haired girl frantically snatched her gun and screamed, "Drive! A massive steel wolf is chasing us!" As the nightmare became real, with the mutated beast's snarling face and bared claws looming right in front of the windshield. With no way to run, the black-haired girl fired her weapon while the blonde woman slammed her foot on the gas to flee, and in that split-second battle for life, the black-haired girl growled, her eyes blazing with fierce determination as she stood ready to face death. While the snowstorm raged, Nanzi suddenly glanced up as distant gunshots warned that danger was closing in on the herb hunters. The medical team was in big trouble, and he was surrounded by a pack of mutated wolves with glowing red eyes staring at him in the dark. He smirked, an idea sparking in his mind that saved him the hassle of searching. The monsters grew smarter because their minds were so sharp, and they surrounded him in a deadly ring. Bullet holes still marred the truck's windshield, a silent reminder of the fierce fight that had just happened. A huge, twisted wolf let out a terrible snarl, baring its sharp teeth and claws as it clung tightly to the truck, refusing to let go of its prey. Inside the truck, the blonde girl frantically reloaded and shouted for Xian to be careful, while Xian calmly reassured her to drive away immediately, no matter if they killed the wolves or just managed to scare them off. The blonde girl held the wheel tight, her blue eyes burning with strength as she said, "All right, leave it to me." While Nanxiang rushed into the pack of wolves, her sword glowing and slashing through the snow. Suddenly, he spotted a massive shape lurking in the distance, and knowing the Wolf King was on their side, he realized that taking down this pack of wolves would save the medical team. Right before a gigantic horned wolf with crimson eyes stepped forward as the pack's leader, Nanxiang stared straight at the snarling Wolf King and shouted, "Now that the leader is here, our fight starts." Just as a blinding flash of light exploded, showing that a huge battle was about to begin. Nanxiang stood his ground right in the center of the energy storm as blue light exploded around him, showing that a brand new power had awakened. The system revealed his beast-taming gift, awakening a hidden strength from his past life within the masked young man. Midair, Nanxiang hovered with a swirling surge of azure energy around him like a powerful declaration, as his awakened power erupted in a blue light that surged like a tsunami, pushing back the growling pack of mutated wolves while he stood steady as a mountain, continuously gushing forth to sweep away all obstacles in its path. The Wolf King's burning red eyes narrowed, showing he was both angry and tired of this surprise strength. The Wolf King unleashed a terrifying roar, bursting into a blaze of red light as it fought against the blue energy of its rival. The battle exploded into action as two rivers of blue and red energy smashed together in a wild, powerful show of force. A mutated wolf got caught in the swirling energy vortex and fought hard, but its fierce red glow never faded. Nanxing touched down, standing between two giant wolves with blue energy still wrapping around him and ready for his next move. He turned away from the pack of wolves, locked his eyes on the Wolf King, and the blue light around him glowed brighter than ever. "Kill the horse before the rider, and take the king to find the bandits," he shouted, his eyes shining through the mask like a predator waiting for its prey. The mutated wolves lifted their heads in stunned silence, but Nanxing didn't hesitate. She shot forward like a blue lightning bolt, sending a massive shockwave that threw the entire pack backward and cleared her way. A powerful wave of energy rolled over the battlefield, flinging the smaller wolves around as if they were nothing more than loose toys. He stood before the Wolf King, his hand burning with red fire, shouting that the most important job was to tame the pack's leader, while the king roared back with eyes that looked like they wanted to burn the whole world. The young man lunged forward with all his might, driven by sheer will to tame the Steel Wolf King no matter what it cost. A fiery red light from his hand wrapped around the Wolf King as he shouted "Tame," causing the beast to howl in pain while the young man's powerful energy wave pushed its huge body backward. Its roar ripped through the air, yet inside those fiery red eyes, a fierce battle raged between its wild nature and a power it could not resist. His calming power spread so strongly that even the other twisted wolves had to bow, bringing the whole pack under his control. While he stood there, a bright light appeared in his mind, showing the roots of his taming power reaching out. But right in the middle of this life-or-death fight, a loud gunshot cracked through the air and broke his focus. Inside the armored car, the dark-haired girl screamed at her sister to drive faster as the blonde girl floored it, tires screeching, while terror-stricken she watched wolves tear at the vehicle with sharp fangs, knowing they were doomed. The car window exploded into 1,000 pieces as terrified screams mixed with the wild chaos around us. A twisted wolf showed its sharp teeth and rushed straight into the cockpit, its burning red eyes filled with a hunger for blood. The armored truck was just a toy compared to the monsters, spinning wildly in the white snow. Right before she died, the black-haired girl stared at something so weird she was frozen in shock, wondering if her eyes were broken until she realized the scary, mutated wolves looked absolutely cute. The camera zooms in on a twisted wolf with glowing azure eyes, sharp fangs, and an innocent, pampered smile. The giant beast crouched down, its eyes glowing with a strange kindness that had nothing to do with the wild fury of a wolf. Far away, armored trucks were still stuck in the white snow, surrounded by packs of growling mutated wolves that had stopped their frantic attacks. Inside the wrecked car, the black-haired and blonde girls gazed out with wide eyes, filled with both shock and terror at the impossible scene before them. The wolf pack still surrounded them with growls echoing around, yet they just stood their ground, showing no sign of tearing their prey apart. The two biggest wolves walked up to the car and suddenly lowered their heads like they were showing they meant no harm. On the snowy mountaintop, Nanxing stood tall and gestured, causing the entire wolf pack, even the giant Wolf King, to bow their heads together in obedience. The blonde girl and the black-haired girl stood frozen on the car roof, staring in shock at the distant light where giant mutated wolves had appeared, wondering if those beasts had finally been tamed. Their eyes were wide with shock as the blonde girl shouted that one person had tamed thousands of wolves, a terrifying beast tamer level that was simply unbelievable. Nanxing stood by the glowing talent tree, watching his screen show that he had used up all his daily taming chances and wasted no energy stones. Nanxing smirked at the wolf pack, surprised to find he already had a whole crew of pets. He casually sat on the Wolf King's back, gently patting its head and ordering, "You all seem quite obedient. Disperse for now. I will summon you when needed," while firmly instructing, "Remember, do not attack humans." As he stood atop a high mountain overlooking the snow-covered wilderness, muttering to himself about the nearby city and the many wilderness areas further away where he must tame and conquer all mutated monsters, his eyes resolute as he adjusted his mask and thought of the Great War Plan that required an army of over 10 million mutated monsters, all while another thought flashed about: ensuring the safety of the medicinal herb collection team. While Nanxing was explaining his big plan, a sudden message from the factory stopped him cold. He muttered about an emergency meeting, his eyes bright with curiosity as he read the message asking him to come to the training ground. Standing on a frozen, snow-packed field where workers and trucks piled with supplies had gathered, a top official gave a scary speech. The official's voice rang out in anger like a whip, cutting through the cold air where people huddled together, saying that while you promised great progress, you were still struggling against even the weakest monsters. A middle-aged man stepped forward to plead, admitting that this was the first time Yi City had faced monsters of this size and that his factory only had elderly workers left. The official snapped, "Time!" His eyes sharp as razors, clearly angry. He bellowed, gripping a handkerchief so tight his knuckles turned white, and demanded, "Do you get how serious this is? Our soldiers at the front are starving right now. With the monsters hiding in the back running out, he shouted like thunder that we must kill the big ones first to help our soldiers at the front." Linasai pulled his gun and aimed it straight at Nanxing, sneering, "You folks from Ye City causing trouble and disrespecting your own bosses?" Nanxing stared straight into the gun barrel, his fiery red eyes flashing with a cold glint as he realized who it was. He remembered his past life as the wanted poster of a traitor who had profited from war's bloodshed, finally executed after 12 years of fighting across countless battlefields. Lin Yukai was the blood-sucking monster feeding on our supply line. In a past life, Lin Yukai risked everything to sneak weapons from safety to the front lines, only to get caught after costing the army dearly. He had aimed Ye City's speed just to steal their hard work of catching dangerous monsters and pocket all the money for himself. No wonder he was here, because Nanxing remembered how that traitor once pointed a gun at Lin Yukai in his past life and now stood right before him. Nanxing secretly made a plan to handle Lin Yukai, but not before he took everything he could first, all while the workers kept shouting that they were doing their job right. Lin Yuta still kept his gun pointed, sneering at the workers and blaming the lack of supplies on their own suffering and sacrifice. The silver-haired man's eyes suddenly narrowed in recognition as a chilling familiarity washed over him at the sight of the young man before him. The man in the black jacket stared at Nanxiang with a thinking face, then a small smile showed he would let her take the mission. Lin Yui clenched his teeth and swore a harsh military promise that he'd bring 5,000 level 4 monsters tomorrow to test Nanxiang, giving him only a week to survive them or face his fate. But if he lost, Lin Yui promised to clear every debt, both the old ones and the new ones. Nanxiang nodded coldly and walked away, leaving behind the worried voices and offers of help from everyone as he quietly insisted he could handle it himself. Inside Nanxiang's mind, a terrifying giant level 4 monster loomed with glowing red eyes, sharp spikes, and power strong enough to shake both his body and his thoughts. He suddenly saw that these weren't just materials but rare treasures to boost his skills, all because of the traitor Lin Yui, which made Nanxiang's cold eyes harden as he vowed to crush every monster, grow stronger, and eventually pull up Lin Yui and his entire nest. The next day, 5,000 level 4 monsters were shoved into huge containers, waiting for a life or death test. Amidst towering stacks of containers where 5,000 level 4 monsters waited, a group of people stood silently with heavy eyes, while a plump official triumphantly read aloud that logistics soldier Nanxing from Ye City had been ordered to deal with the monsters within 1 week under Quartermaster Lin Yuta's command. Suddenly, his voice snapped into a sharp, dangerous warning as he accused you of defying orders, stirring up riots, and attacking an officer, declaring that any hesitation would only pile on more charges and that you would face death right then without needing anyone else to sign off. He sneered and made a gun shape with his finger, then by the firing squad, bang, haha. The whole crowd froze in shock as the reddish-brown-haired girl and others screamed, "What? A firing squad?" The chubby official just smirked and mocked them. "Remember how easy it was when you swore your loyalty yesterday? Now you're scared." He stared at the girl with hate before turning to Nanxiang. "When that day comes, I will be the one to put you down myself." Stepping closer, his smile twisted into something evil as he whispered that he would savor every second of it. Nanxi said nothing but silently reached out to take the order, while the young man's glowing red eyes flashed with anger as he sneered that those words were just from a messenger. The angry official yelled, but Linu stepped forward with a fake smile, saying, "We should be kinder to those who are about to die, Nanxing. Let the show begin and I'll wait for you." So the red-haired girl and the man in the black jacket put on their gas masks while he worriedly reminded her that high-level monsters need anesthetic smoke, but most of it has been sent to the front lines, leaving very little here that might not be enough, to which Nanxi curtly replied, "Be careful," and he answered, "Understood." As Nanxing walked into the container area, someone asked, "Hey, can't these mutated monsters fire mind attacks? Testing grounds usually avoid them at all costs. So why does he look so sure of himself? Maybe he's a psychic." The bodyguard beside Lin Yui said, "I tested my mind powers on that kid earlier, but he didn't react at all. Level 4 monsters are too strong mentally for anyone like me. So just wait to kill Nanxi." Lin Yui grinned wickedly, imagining Nanxiang losing his mind, though by then the poor man would probably be too angry to feel scared of dying. What a pity for the plump official and his guard standing in a metal room complaining about how stingy their boss was for not letting them take more loot. The official with a creepy smile imagined all the treasures he'd get after the kid was killed, then turned to tell his bodyguard to keep an eye on things. The shadowed bodyguard promised with a steady voice that everything would be told exactly as it happened. Meanwhile, Nanziyang stepped into a dangerous crimson world filled with glowing spots that looked like monster eyes. But when the giant red eyes of a level 4 monster appeared and pressed hard on his mind, the masked black-haired boy just stared back with his own red eyes, completely unafraid. He quietly muttered that the monsters were quite skilled before a giant fake skull slammed down to trap him in darkness while a spiky monster lunged at him, terrifying the young man. Nanziyang's glowing red eyes widened in surprise as he realized the danger was close, so he quickly dodged the illusion monster's attack with a sharp, powerful move. Suddenly, Nanziyang swung his sword, sending a bright beam of light through the red air to hit the real monster hiding inside the fake one. And when that light struck, everything exploded into pieces, leaving a dark, empty space behind. He kept attacking, shouting that the illusions meant nothing if they couldn't take over his mind, while Nanziyang stood among the defeated monsters, vowing he needed more dark energy to make his Ashura talent stronger. His glowing red eyes looked right through the mask, and Nanziyang stepped up to the enemy to force it to show its true power. A flash of light lit up his eyes as a sudden realization hit him, causing the sword in his grip to glow red while ghostly shadows began to stretch out from beneath his feet. Nanziyang shot forward like an arrow tearing through the night with dark specters chasing him, but then an eerie voice whispered to shake his will and make him give up. A quiet groan slipped from him as his spirit was pushed to its breaking point. Painful memories rushed back, his father's ghostly figure flickering like an illusion, making him wonder what price he had paid. "Is all of this worth it?" the voice asked, casting doubt on the power of the many races and his revenge, while a purple symbol flashed in his eyes. He crumbled to the ground, and the poisonous words kept eating at him, telling him to drop the heavy job of saving everyone and accept his terrible destiny. But no, a hand smashed through the trick, and a bright red light burst out. Standing tall with a blazing aura, he declared that humanity's fate must be decided by humans alone, causing terrified spirits to shriek at how he could endure such madness-inducing evil energy, only for Nanziyang to roar and reveal that this very evil was the shortcut to upgrading his power. His hand began to shine as he grabbed the dark power and turned it into his own strength by using his special ability. As the fake monster was dragged down and disappeared, terrifying screams filled the air. Voices bounced around the fancy room, mixing worry with greed as one person fretted over missing supplies while another growled about their huge profit, forcing them to hold back their partners before everything exploded. In the fancy room, the greedy boss Lin Yukai sipped his red wine while a young blonde girl with bunny ears tried to seduce him by pouring it, even as his cloudy eyes hid a burning need for quick profits before his hard work on mutated monsters was all in vain. But then a heavy sigh escaped him as he ground his teeth in frustration at his greedy subordinates and the secret military investigations that tied him in knots. Frustrated and staring at his phone, Lin Yukai cursed himself for not knowing where to find a safe spot to fight these powerful mutated monsters just as his phone rang, cutting through the quiet, and he frowned to tell the caller to speak up, only to hear a panicked voice say a military order had come down for the Yang branch. Lin Yui sniffed disdainfully at his worthless followers and demanded, "Has that Nanziyang been taken care of yet?" The other side quickly rejected that claim, saying they had just arrived from somewhere else, and while only 4 days had gone by, the mission was nearly done. Yet these highly mutated monsters were almost level 4, far beyond what Yachang'an could handle, a fact that left Lin Yukai and everyone around him staring in shock. Another voice confirmed the mission to wipe out 5,000 monsters was done, only to reveal the terrifying truth. It was all Nanzi who swept them all away. Lin Yusi let out a sneering laugh and asked if the kid named Nanzing was still hanging on for dear life. At the other end, the reply came back that he was still tired but fine and sharp, so Lin Yukai ordered, "Good, watch him closely. If he tries anything other than killing those monsters, you know what to do." And the officials and their team were shocked to hear that this young man had already finished the mission, especially since the curly-haired woman confirmed he had no special powers before, while the brown-haired man stood stunned, wondering how he did it. Deep inside Nanzi's mind, the Ashura talent tree surged to level 5, filling his weapon with a new demonic power that could slice through armor for 5 seconds. With tired eyes but a determined look, Nanzing muttered to himself that after a few days his strength had grown so much that, even without reaching level 6, he had unlocked the first skill of his Ashura talent. Now that the black-haired young man could safely dive deeper into the wild, hunt tougher beasts, and speed up his plans, his 2 assistants looked after him while Nanzi's mind had already zoomed far ahead toward even bigger dreams. Back at the base, the officials were still buzzing with news, and the curly-haired woman snorted with pride, thinking that comrade Little Nan had really made them all proud. The official kept screaming and threatening anyone who touched his money, while the man in the black uniform watched seriously and warned that letting this go on would ruin the boss's reputation. Suddenly, he struck with such force that the fat official was knocked out instantly. The witnesses froze in sheer terror at that sudden move. The man in black calmly told everyone that the official had been pushed to act against danger by the monster's powerful mental energy. Nanxing's figure quietly slipped away, leaving chaos in its wake. He murmured softly, realizing the official had fainted from mental strain rather than being killed. So the man who hit him sighed in disappointment, decided to report that a monster had manipulated the officer's mind, and then lowered his voice to warn that what was about to happen was far more important. Nanxing, with sharp eyes, asked again, sensing something ominous. The curly-haired man stopped to shout for little Lu, while someone else yelled out Nanxing's name right at the same time. With red hair and a warm smile, the girl named Lu joined other patients in cheering as they all agreed to make Nanxing the leader of the Ye City Challenge Tower branch. A hand slid an official appointment letter from his bosses right in front of Nanxing, leaving him completely stunned. The curly-haired man grinned as he praised everyone's hard work, then gently told Aunt Wang to forget the past and awkwardly asked the group to call Nanxing Commander Nan, which they all cheered for with renewed energy. Lu quickly voiced her worry that the new mission was too heavy, with half the men but double the supplies needed. She gazed at Nanxing with worry, asking how he could keep working non-stop and fix the mess. Inside Nanxing's mind, a burst of blue energy erupted as he proudly thought of his level 7 monster taming talent, his level 6 innate ability, and a slashing skill that doubled his power, all while his defiant crimson eyes flashed and he decided to ask Lin Yukai and his friends that question. The girl narrowed her eyes and demanded a serious answer, accusing him of working with them. The moment his opponent's guard dropped, a burst of red power shot from Nanxing's hand, seizing the perfect opening. He let his Aura power fly, sending the girl flying across the room while the air shook around them. The girl moved so fast her red fingernails flashed as she prepared to fight back. A gunshot tore through the air, sending an energy bullet flying straight at Nanxing and causing a brilliant explosion. But Nanxing held his ground, wrapped in a crimson shield of power, and growled. "Who said I'm working with that traitor Lin Yukai? You're wrong." The girl stepped back, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and doubt as she whispered, "Really? Then why did you help him?" Nanxing answered with a steady face, "But I only did my job in Yi City and didn't really help him." He turned and walked away, leaving the girl staring with a confused heart, wondering how he could know so much about their leader's secret sins, even if he is just a traitor. The girl's eyes flashed with sudden resolve as she stared down Nanxing Yang and offered a bold plan to team up against Lin Yukai before revealing her own name and rank. Nanxing stayed quiet and stared at Zhang Yuan with a sharp look, trying to figure out if his sudden offer to work together was real. He stared right at her and spoke with a steady voice, saying, "I refuse." For a split second, everything went crazy as angry faces screamed and fists flew up like they were fighting an invisible fire. A crushing kick knocked him into the air while he stumbled out a messy apology in the middle of the chaos. Zhang Yuan narrowed her eyes sharply and asked, "So you're choosing to side with the trouble?" Nanxing turned away with a calm voice, saying, "No, Lin Yukai must be dealt with, but not right now and certainly not with you," before looking up with a piercing gaze to warn her that she hasn't thought about what would happen if Lin Yukai were killed. Zhang Yuan jumped and stared in shock, asking, "What do you mean?" The young man stood tall with a determined look, knowing that to take down Lin Yukai, there were only two ways: kill him or expose him from within. He kept studying the blurry crowd until he realized that killing one person wouldn't silence everyone if there were more than one target. A close-up of Zhang Yuan's face showed her worry as he added, "Remember who you are. If the assassination fails, what do you think will happen to you?" Nanxing turned his back on the ruined city, fearing that if this was an inside job, the slow, painful investigation would leave humanity with another crushing defeat. His words showed a panicked crowd running away, because if rumors of a fight over supplies spread, outsiders will think we are in trouble, and that will set off a terrible chain reaction that throws our entire rear into chaos. Zhang Yuan was so flustered and unsure of what to do that he stammered, this is... Oh, so what do you think we should do?" Nanxing stared straight into her eyes, his voice firm and sure, declaring that he would take care of it all by himself. Zhang Yuan froze in shock, her eyes going wide as she stared at you. Zhang Yuan screamed in anger, calling Nanxing a coward who couldn't handle the hell he was walking through. A sudden burst of red energy shot out from Nanxing's hand, revealing a secret power she hid deep inside. Nanxing stood cold with a ring of red energy around him, silently daring Zhang Yuan to show his strength. Zhang Yuan stepped back with a mix of surprise and fear, and as she watched Nanxing change so fast in just 1 week, a sudden idea hit her. Nanxing's terrifying gift of getting stronger all by herself could turn the entire battle on its head. Nanxing stopped the talk and told Zhang Yuan not to make any sudden moves. He nodded again, his red eyes burning with fierce resolve as he promised to take Lin Yukai down himself. Zhang Yuan smirked and accepted the challenge with confidence. Yet he secretly wanted more because he knew he wasn't strong enough yet. With that, Nanxing turned and walked away, waving goodbye, leaving Zhang Yuan all alone in the cold. Zhang Yuan stared at her friend walking away, feeling scared, but her friend's strong eyes made her choose to believe in him. A few days later, triumphant laughter filled the container yard as Chief Nan finished his job and a new, snowy mission for Ye City was assigned, leaving Sister Lu and her curly-haired friend worried about the tough level 5 monsters they now had to face. Sister Lu asked Nanxing about his old wounds, but he just said, "It's fine. I can do this mission," while the silver-haired Lin Yukai laughed, called him straightforward, and kept signing papers with his hand. Lin Yukai saw Nanxing as an untouchable tool he could use to cut through the obstacles blocking his way. He was lost in a money dream, laughing with joy as he imagined getting rich from the war. Nanxing's hand turned into a tight fist as a cold spark of determination lit up his eyes. Lin Yukai kept smiling and promised a medal to Nanxing for a job well done, while Nanxing, clueless about Lin Yukai's real plans, quickly ordered Sister Lu and Aunt Wang and their team to get to work. In a huge holding area, hundreds of people shouted with joy as they moved cages of twisted monsters toward the battle tower, getting ready for a wild fight. Liney felt good about the vibe in Ye City. Then he turned and walked away, leaving Nanxing to figure things out on his own. Nanxing watched Lin Yukai walk away, his eyes sharp with a secret promise that the official's riches would one day feed him. Half of Nanxing's face hid in the dark, his red eyes glowing with power as he proved those assets were meant to make him stronger. He pulled out his evil alloy sword, glowing with swirling crimson energy, ready to fight. Nanxing roared and charged straight into the heart of the fierce wolf monsters. Every slash of his blade cut through the air, surrounded by a sea of red energy where messages flashed that Ashura's killing intent was still below 15. While Nanxing fought without stopping as his own Ashura level climbed higher and higher, showing his power was growing stronger and stronger. On March 20th, after 4 hours of brutal fighting, the 8th defense line of Eagle Land crumbled, costing 800,000 soldiers and 50,000 espers their lives. In a scene soaked with blood, Nanxing swung his alloy berserk sword and went into Asura frenzy, slashing at the giant snake monster as blood splattered everywhere. 2 days later, the 8th wall in the northern ice broke, letting 10,000 invaders pour into our land and killing 600,000 of our own soldiers. He kept fighting, swinging his alloy dragon sword and calling out the Sura dragon slayer to take on a giant dragon in a misty purple glow. On March 24th, the southern glacier's last line of defenders stood against the Steel tribe and were utterly destroyed in an hour, while screams of terror echoed through the valley. Once again, Nanxing burst into the past, wielding the alloy demon sword to cleave through a towering demon in a sea of crimson flame, while on March 26th, France and Kawasaki's 8th defense lines crumbled in half an hour as wolf monsters snarled in the fire, and the desperate cries of 1,000 races echoed into the black energy striking them down. Back in the present, 3 wolf-like monsters with burning red eyes growled and prepared to strike. With a determined look and a cut on his face, Nanxing stared down the monsters and shouted, "If that's true, let's try it on you." As he lifted his sword high, black and red energy spinning around his arm, ready to strike the attacking beasts with a final blow. A world-shaking burst of crimson energy flashed across the sky and wiped out the monsters in a dazzling instant. Standing atop a pile of monster corpses, Nanxing deactivated her terrifying mode, leaving her covered in blood like a god of war, feeling the immense surge of power that was far stronger than before. In the quiet dark, energy stones shimmered like stars, promising a bright new day that could even help tame wild monsters. But the harsh truth still hung heavy in the air, with urgent news blaring from the strategic base that the Eastern Alliance, the United States, and the Mao Nation were barely holding on, forcing the Eastern Alliance to lower the conscription age to 16 and call up new soldiers. The collapse happened too fast, and even with his powerful Azura talent, Nanxing knew he couldn't turn things around alone. So he had to think fast while the curly-haired woman beside him gasped that his speed had improved again, and as the crowd buzzed around him, the young man walked forward with a determined look that pierced through everyone in sight. An old commander with a sneaky grin stepped forward, smiled, and offered a handkerchief before asking what job you wanted, only for Nanxing's red eyes to lock onto him and declare, "I want you." Tonight, Nanxing demanded I join him in the northern wilds to hunt down a pack of steel wolves, and he wouldn't budge on that. The hair-bristling commander burst into loud, confident laughter and said, "I love it," while Nanxing bowed his head to reply, "Then it's yours, Commander Lin," as the old commander gave him a friendly pat on the shoulder. "Don't worry," he laughed, but his smile faded fast and his eyes turned cold, saying, "You little brat, if you try anything funny, I'll finish you off." Nanxing kept a calm face even as he told you that, despite his stern warning, enemies were attacking and you were too far behind to be saved. Under the bright full moon over the snow-covered north, Nanxing stood in his thick coat, remembering how dangerous high-level users make the world. So he whispered to himself to stay quiet, then shouted for wolves, and a pack with glowing red eyes answered his call in the night. Under the silver moonlight, the growls of the monster pack echoed through the wilderness, warning that a bloody night of hunting was about to begin. Nanxing stared at the status board, watching how the requirements to upgrade the monster tamer kept climbing faster and faster. While snow fell hard, 3 armored vehicles rolled down a lonely mountain road, their headlights cutting through the darkness. Inside a vehicle, the man with wild hair hugged the frantic blonde girl, while his subordinate shouted that 1,000 eyeless red wolves were charging like a monster tide to tear the convoy apart. The panicked gray-haired man shouted for a teleportation escape, but the comm driver explained that their only hope was to drive straight through the wolf pack toward a possible path, since the magic device couldn't reach them from the towering monster tide. "Stop prattling and get driving," the red-haired man shouted, his fear swallowing up his pride. Horrific crashing sounds echoed as the vehicles were relentlessly attacked by the steel wolves, sending smoke, dust, and snow flying everywhere. From above, Nanxing appeared with a cold stare as he looked over the chaotic battlefield, arriving at just the perfect moment. Beneath the bright full moon, Nanxing's face was hard with resolve, his red eyes blazing like fire, while a golden lightning bolt tore across the sky and hit the earth, showing that terrible power was coming. Nanxing charged straight into the battle, his voice booming with confidence as he shouted, "Let's tame a few wolves and wipe out these pests in a flash." Crimson energy flared around Nanxing as he unleashed his monster-taming power, standing ready to face the steel wolves. Even as the blizzard raged and fire turned the sky red, Nanxing roared so loudly it sounded like thunder, and that was tame. Right away, huge steel wolves with red eyes and black bodies suddenly appeared, doing exactly what they were told without anyone giving the order. Just then, a notification popped up showing Nanxing had tamed more than 100,000 level 5 wolves, and a panicked driver from the convoy shouted that the wolf pack had stopped, meaning a monster tamer was right ahead, which made the guy with the rainbow hair in the car jump for joy as if luck had finally turned in his favor. He quickly talked to the man in sunglasses, saying they had never heard of such a powerful master in Yakan and that the tamer might be useful, but Nanxing suddenly barked an order for 100,000 giant steel wolves, his eyes blazing red with cold fury as he commanded them to tear the convoy apart without leaving anyone alive, sending the armored beasts rushing forward like deadly arrows and leaving the subordinates screaming in horror that they were being swamped by a tide of monsters. The gray-haired man's face turned white as he screamed for more firepower, but it was too late because hundreds of thousands of steel wolves had already swarmed to surround and attack the convoy from every side. The monsters rushed in, smashing the glass and ripping the cars apart until they were just piles of twisted metal. The man in sunglasses quickly pulled the red-haired blonde into his arms to shield her, while the gray-haired man screamed in terror, "Boss, this place is too dangerous." The man with wild hair turned pale and screamed in terror, begging us to teleport away right now. The car was whipped into the sky and spun around. The man with the funny hair stood frozen, completely shocked. "Nanxing!" The spiky-haired man roared with fury, his eyes wild. "You're that monster tamer? Are you trying to kill me?" The young man answered, but the man shrieked, his face twisted in rage and fear, shouting, "If you touch me, I swear not only you but your whole family will meet a terrible end." Nanxing smirked with sarcasm, saying, "I totally believe you, but sadly, you won't get that chance," before lunging forward like a sudden gust of wind. Nanxing's icy hand squeezed the gay-haired man's throat until he gasped out his final breath, shouting, "Fong! Mang! Fong Ming!" The witness cried out in despair at the horrific scene, but Nanxing didn't hesitate, instantly unleashing his ultimate technique, Ashura Dragon Slayer, where a killing intent transformed into a mighty dragon that devoured everything to teleport the others to safety. Nanxing's red energy smashed into Fong Mang's purple force, sending a massive explosion that shook the ground. Fong Mong screamed in despair as Nanxi's power completely cut off his teleportation ability. He couldn't believe his eyes as a towering esper materialized right before him, leaving him completely overwhelmed. The man with wild hair stood frozen, his eyes wide and his mouth shut in shock at the terrible sight. Nanxi's sword flew straight through Fong Mang, cutting off the loyal man's life even as he begged for mercy. A cold, sorry sound from Nanxing echoed like a goodbye to the traitor. The gray-haired man was thrown high into the air, screaming the name of Nanxing while calling him a traitor, but his angry shouts quickly turned into screams of terror as Nanxi's giant steel wolves emerged and surrounded him. The man with the gay hair let out a heartbreaking scream that faded away as the fierce wolves tore him apart without mercy. Nanxing spun around and walked off into the empty air, muttering Lin Yukai's name behind him. In Ye City, the big, bright moon lit up the Special Ability Survey Bureau. A girl relaxing in a bathtub suddenly flinched as a powerful aura erupted from the city, signaling that a supreme esper had awakened, and Su Lang, a level 5 with aura perception, immediately rushed to report it to the Special Ability Survey Bureau. After the fierce fight, a calm voice called out from the snowy wasteland that the danger was over and they could come out. So the giant steel wolves who had just finished their job lined up quietly waiting for their next order. But the loyal monsters were so eager that they rushed to lick him with such intensity that the young man had to shout, "Hey, Tatilda, stop! That's enough, stop!" Their rough tongues kept licking the mask, showing the wolves just how happy they were. His red eyes flashed, and a strong order rang out to make everyone sit still and obey, instantly quieting the wolves and making them calm. He sighed and shook his head, giving up and admitting that even his strength couldn't stop him from yielding to the pet's wild excitement. Finally, a faint smile appeared on his face as he praised the wolves, his eyes full of satisfaction, and then gently patted them like obedient puppies while telling the new, agile creatures that had just arrived that they had a new mission to tackle. He looked straight ahead and sent her away to the cold north to find some special stones for him, a simple order that meant something much bigger. Under the bright full moon, he stood tall as the wolves looked up and howled to the blue sky, calling everyone to start their hunt. Meanwhile, in a faraway corner of the world, Ye City was buried under a snowy night, with its huge slaughterhouse standing tall in the quiet snow. Inside a modern building, Su Ling, a girl with curly brown hair, dropped shocking news. Her friends Nanxing and Linikai's whole team had been wiped out by a massive monster tide in the north the day before, leaving Nanxing to hear it in silence while he ate. She stared at him with suspicion, her sharp eyes searching for the truth as he casually admitted to summoning mutated wolves, leaving her stunned into silence before she trembled with shock at the thought of him controlling monsters too. He pressed a finger to his lips, offered a knowing smile, and whispered, "Shoo," hiding a shocking secret that left Su Ling frozen in disbelief with cold sweat on her forehead. Nanxing stood up to break the heavy silence, and Su Ling quickly straightened her back, declaring that she had handed in proof of Linukai's greed, and that his stolen money was about to be taken away. Su Ling felt so grateful that she offered to buy him a drink, but Nanxing coldly declined, saying the country was in crisis and he had no appetite for celebration. His steps stopped because a sudden idea popped into his head. He turned his head, his crimson eyes flashing with a strange glint, and said, "If you really want to thank me, there's another way." Su Ling, her eyes wide with curiosity and a spark of hope, asked, "Which way?" As Nanxing smiled meaningfully and pointed to where they stood, revealing his plan to turn their spot into a massive monster processing plant 100 times bigger than any in Yi City. A goal Su Ling quickly accepted and promised to deliver since her bosses would be thrilled with such a huge new supply for the front lines. He stood in the middle of a blazing red, blood-soaked slaughterhouse where mutated monsters were butchered for food, making it a true gold mine. Meanwhile, Nanxing began to move, standing there as crimson light gathered in his palm. Having tamed the giant steel wolves, he was now ready to unleash a huge wave of monsters. 2 days later, his power exploded, and he stood as a level 7 beast tamer commanding a massive pack of 10,000 level 5 steel wolves, holding enough source stones to tame nearly 2 million creatures, and ready to catch even stronger monsters. Standing in the middle of the burning battlefield with a red glow around him, he shouted that the world's fate rested on us all, begging everyone to join him in protecting the northern wilds and our planet together. His power kept climbing until he reached level 8 beast tamer, commanding 500,000 giant steel wolves and a horde of source stones under the blood moon, while hundreds of thousands of his wolves growled in eager battle readiness. Out on the white bone plains, giant beasts with sharp horns and bright red eyes let out a terrifying roar. Nanxing stepped forward with a determined look to face the monsters known as level 6 blazing street Ilyaks, then raised his hand to unleash a wave of crimson energy that tamed them, turning their fierce eyes into obedient ones while he ordered them to guard the white bone plains and gather the source stones. He commanded his newly tamed army of monsters to leave humans alone, stay away from cities, and wait for his next order. The system proudly showed his power, holding 1 million source stones that were enough to tame a terrifying level 7 monster. Nanxing gathered his million source stones and marched toward the dangerous Rift Canyon, where terrifying level 7 mutated apes waited to ambush him. Beneath the red blood moon, he felt a terrifying presence from level 7 monsters, creatures far stronger than the wolves and yaks he had faced before. A giant, mutated ape roared and charged the other mutant ape he was fighting. The taming spell backfired badly, ripping the monster apart and filling the air with its horrifying screams. A blue-haired stranger showed up and burped with a sneer, saying, "Delicious," while under the blood moon, a blonde madman wielding a baseball bat emerged and cackled. The blue-haired man laughed wildly as purple chains wrapped around his tall body while he loomed over the 2 tiny figures below. In the next heartbeat, Nanxing's power surged outward as he vowed to crush the monsters into submission before turning them into his own. He dove into the cruel fight, using his Ashura Berserker move to face the giant mutated ape head-on. Every crash sent shards of the trimmer's edge flying, but Nanxing slipped through the mess like a sudden wind. He threw his whole strength into activating the level 8 beast taming skill, causing a fiery energy vortex to wrap around him. But the spell faded once more, and the taming skill shattered like a broken sword in the empty darkness. Nanxing froze in shock when more mutated apes stepped out from the shadows, their golden eyes burning with fierce anger. He finally figured it out. Their non-stop growling was the only reason his taming efforts kept failing. With so many level 7 mutant apes around, he ignored the weak ones and hunted down their leader, blasting a red beam of light into the ground that split the monster pack with a huge crack. He squeezed the sword hard in his hand, its blade glowing with red power, waiting to strike again. Amazingly, Nanxing dodged the apes' attacks and kept fighting, quietly respecting their power, until he slipped away from a strike and muttered, "They are strong but not very smart," only to face a deadly blow head-on without a single sign of fear. The twisted ape let out a furious roar, showing off its sharp teeth and burning golden eyes. Nanxing deftly dodged the attack and praised the move before charging forward, surrounded by red energy, to roar at the mutated apes and tell them they were underestimating their new master, slashing through the smaller monsters with a red sword that swept them away into the cliff. He stood tall with a determined look, his crimson energy still burning bright, shouting a challenge from the dark cave as a giant shadow with red eyes and purple power slowly stepped forward like a mighty answer. The new enemy was so huge that Nanxing gasped in shock. A crushing weight slammed down on the room, and without his amazing Asaurus skill, he would have been on his knees already. The mutated ape king, a mountain of muscle with blazing golden eyes, towered before him, and he knew this wasn't a normal rival but something far stronger, likely already at level 9 or beyond. A terrifying speed as the colossal monster charged like lightning, tearing through the air. The ape king's sharp fangs snapped shut as if to devour him, and he growled, "Want to eat me?" His eyes turned bright red as Sura energy rushed through him, but he was in for a shock because I wasn't going to be an easy meal. He swung the sword with a furious, fatal slash that tore clean through the air. The ape king let out a roar of pain as his huge body was shoved backward by the terrifying power he unleashed. Refusing to back down, the mutated ape king tensed his muscles as dark purple energy burst from him, ready to strike back. With the ground shattered into a deep crater by the colossal ape king's earth-breaking blow, he lay slumped and coughing blood in the dust, staring up at the towering mutated monsters and their godlike king who had just unleashed the attack. Even with bad wounds, Nanxing stayed calm and let a red killing aura explode around him as he shouted, "You think I'm easy? Watch me take charge." With his Ashura skills, mortal hell mode turned on. Nanxing unleashed all his power, turning into a red whirlwind with his hair flying and his sword glowing, ready to strike the final blow. Meanwhile, at the Supernatural Investigation Agency, Su Ling, the curly-haired girl, turned to her colleague Shin Kir, the braided one, and asked if she was certain about that feeling just now, prompting Shin Kir to sigh that it was past 3 in the morning and she couldn't grow up if she kept staying up so late, only for Su Ling, a powerful level 5 Esper, to reply seriously that the terrifying killing intent she had sensed couldn't have been a mistake and that their superiors just wanted them to monitor Ye City for a while. Su Ling irritably turned to Chunar and snapped, "Stop calling me older sister. We're the same age, and just because you haven't developed as much as I have doesn't mean you're a child." To which Chun pouted back, "Look at what you've got on your chest. I'm being very polite by not calling you auntie." Suddenly, the dark sky turned a deep, bloody red, and the full moon glowed the same fiery color as a bad sign appeared. Su Ling's eyes went wide as she whispered for silence, then screamed orders to prepare a trap southwest of Yi City, while Qin chanted ancient words that lit the air with blue energy. Above the battlefield, a blood-red pillar of hellish power crashed down, and Nanxing met it with a mighty sword strike that sliced the air toward the mutated ape king. His deadly strike tore right through the air, making the huge mutated ape king scream in agony and sending pieces of rock flying everywhere. Nanxing flashed a savage grin, his red eyes glowing with a hungry craving for blood and total confidence, as if he were a demon just breaking free from his chains. At the investigation agency, Su Ling shook Chunar hard, her voice filled with worry as she begged, "Care, wake up! What did you see?" Amidst a sea of crimson flames, a terrified Chun screamed Chen's name mixed with blood, while a masked demon with cold eyes asked their injured, panting foe if they had finally had enough fun. The dark-haired boy stood tall with his sword held high, looking powerful, and warned his opponent, "If you won't get up to fight again, don't expect me to hold back." The monster gave a deep growl, letting fresh blood drip from the corner of its mouth as its huge body swayed through the broken stones. With bright red eyes staring through his mask, Nanxing challenged his foe, refusing to die in vain, while they both still had strength left to fight. The mutated ape king lifted its head, its golden eyes locking onto him with pure surprise before Nanxing stepped forward and boldly offered a deal. Join his ranks and fight alongside them against the endless races. The room went quiet, leaving just the young man and the giant monster standing alone. Nanxiang waited with patience, his red eyes locked on his opponent without ever looking away. Suddenly, the giant mutated ape king froze his massive fist inches from him, sealing his fate. Good boy! Nanxiang smiled as a glowing golden stone appeared in his palm, proving the beast had finally obeyed. As the crimson glow faded and Ashuram's mode turned off, Nanxiang looked normal again, though his powerful aura still lingered. He stood atop the ruined mountain commanding the mutated ape king. Listen up, you millions of ferocious,